We're going to call this meeting to order now. It is 6:33 p.m. on September 8th, and this is the public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee. The whole commission. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, vamos a empezar esta reunión a las 6:33 en septiembre 8. Esto es una reunión pública de la policía de la ciudad, de la policía de los subcomisionados de la accountabilidad.
Muchas gracias, Talia. Okay. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Andrea and Amanda. Thank you very much. Welcome to. You can pin their video feed if that is helpful to you. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State Law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of the screen. I will pass it to the co-chairs now.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Faith Aiken. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-chairs of the fact-finding phase, along with co-chair Lavisa Lloyd and co-chair Simab Husseini. Very warm welcome to new commissioners, Ajay and Obi, and I want to make sure that I also am saying your name correctly. So please holler if at any point we're not respectfully saying your names. But very warm welcome, and I want to encourage other commissioners to introduce themselves when they are speaking, so that way we can give them a warm welcome. Victoria, I want to make sure that I know where I am in the agenda, and I'm doing the land acknowledgement right now.
Okay.
Is that correct? Question mark. Perfect.
For the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. So tonight, the land acknowledgement is a little bit different. We are acknowledging the land of acknowledgement, which sounds very bureaucratic and meta, but want to recognize that the city of Portland has asked for a moratorium on land acknowledgements as they are working to standardize the most respectful way to acknowledge native land. So the co-chairs did receive a request from one of our members that we participate still in a land acknowledgement, and we would like to recognize the limits of any land acknowledgement and the harm that can be done if we are inadequately or disrespectfully acknowledging the land. So wanted to let you know that we're working to find a respectful way to continue to center Indigenous voices. And I do want to invite us to just have a moment of silence to acknowledge the stolen land and how it impacts our work and impacts police accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Faith. And now we're gonna move to the community agreements. What we're gonna do, we're gonna give a couple minutes for everyone to read it and reflect on it, the page 1 and page 2. Thank you. And if I can see everyone's thumbs or hands that you agree to these communities agreements, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. I know for participants that are in their phones, may be a little difficult to do it. Thank you. Now I will pass it over the co-chairs to discuss the timeline.
Hello again, y'all. Here we are at our favorite timeline, hopefully to ground us a little in where we are. So as a reminder, in December 2021, we began the convening and organizational phase, which we closed in March of 2022. Since April, we have been in the fact-finding phase, where we are hearing from key stakeholders and outside experts, where we are examining accountability system models and suggested models and aiming to understand the barriers to police accountability in our current system. We are hopefully concluding in this month, September 2022, and upcoming, the Commission will work through the agenda set during the organizational phase to develop our powers and duties, then structure and details, the broader system and other details, and eventually a transition plan and final phase, all to come to Council consideration in 2023. And looking at where we are, you will see us here in, oh no, coming up September 12th is the PAC Subcommittee on Research. September 15th is our next full commission meeting. We will be having a briefing with the DOJ. September 19th is scheduled to be a subcommittee on research, the 22nd, possibly a full commission meeting, as well as the 26th, and then a tentative subcommittee on community engagements on the 29th. And then FYI, we also have an upcoming briefing with the authors of Charter 210 on October 17th. Here we are in our phase project plan. So you can see us here in the highlighted area, purple box. We are aiming to complete the areas of agreement on barriers and best practices. As I mentioned, moving on into the next phase of work. And then this evening, we are going to be firstly working on our areas of agreement on best practices and practices to avoid from other jurisdictions. We'll be working on areas of agreement on suggestions to consider and proposals to avoid. This is actually not the right slide. We'll just go to number 3 on this because that's what we're doing. We are going to be talking about areas of agreement on current barriers to police accountability and best practices. So tonight we will be looking at our document to edit and revise the identified barriers and best practices. And then we will have time for public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Co-Chair Commissioner Faith. Now our next, as a next part of the agenda, we're gonna hear a report from Subcommittee on Community Engagement. And we're gonna use the slide 10. And we will pass it into the co-chairs of the Subcommittee on Community Engagement events. Co-chair Tirsa and co-chair Christian is not here to give a brief update on the progress of the subcommittee's work. Commissioner Tirsa.
Hello, Tirsa, she, her, welcome, Ajay and Obi. As of now, there's not much updates, but subcommittee members of community engagements should continue to have communication with community-based organizations and try to come up with a date for a town hall that works. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa. Now we are going to hear, I will pass it to the co-chairs of the subcommittee on research, co-chair Sophia and co-chair Angie, to give a brief update on the progress of the subcommittee's work. Commissioner.
I am hoping that Commissioner Sophia can help me with this because I had to miss the last meeting, and I am hoping that that there was some progression. But as of right now, I know that previously we have a document or an Excel spreadsheet that most of the people on the subcommittee and other people that weren't on the subcommittee added information into. And now we are at the point that we are trying to put it into a document to bring to the full commission. But I'm not exactly sure specifics about where we are in that document and completing those documents.
This is co-chair for Research Subcommittee, Sophia Glenn. Just wanted to add that we are having 2 additional subcommittee and research meetings in this upcoming meeting on the 12th. We will have a draft, I call it a final draft or somewhat final draft, full draft of the document for the subcommittee to review. And hopefully at our meeting on the 19th, we will be able to come to a consensus on that document to be presented to the full commission. And that's about it for now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner and Co-Chair Angie and Sophia. Now we're going to move to this slide 11. We will now move into discussion of the draft areas of agreement on barriers to police accountability and best practices in Portland. This document is probably not going to be voted on today, but will be worked through and adapted for future approval. I want to remind you that this is an open discussion and we ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak. Even though you can speak multiple times, please be facilitated and remember that the commission uses a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. Will the co-chairs like to frame the discussion and then get it started?
Sure. Thank you so much, Victoria. Welcome, Ajay and Obi. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your presence and welcome to the commission. I hope it's going to be really rewarding for you both. And hopefully we get more time to talk to you at a future session. So hello, I'm Livy Lloyd. I use she and her pronouns. I'm a co-chair of the full commission for the fact-finding phase, and I am so happy and excited that we have done so much work on this document so far. And I was going to say, Ajay and Obi, it might seem a little overwhelming to come in at this point, but it's kind of because you're coming in a little closer to the end of a process and the end of a phase, and hopefully it'll all make a little bit more sense when you see the beginning of a phase, or when you see a phase go all the way through from start to finish. So
one of our deliverables, one of our outcome documents for this phase is for the full commission to create barriers and best practices in the current Portland system, barriers to police accountability, and any best practices that we have in the current system. And to that end, we've had a number of speakers come in who are pretty familiar with the current system. We also are really lucky to have a lot of people on the commission who are quite familiar with the current system, and putting all of that information together, we're kind of coming up with this barriers and best practices document. It's been through several rounds of edits and suggestions, and we really tried to incorporate all the great suggestions that we've gotten from the commission so far, and also some really great ones from the public. So thank you so much to the public for showing up and for helping us out with this. And so today we were hoping to take some time. Today we have some time to talk about the document and to go through it and to just sort of get a sense for how we're feeling about the document. You know, we're gonna kind of work through it and sort of figure out like, okay, you know, is this thing accurate? I think I'll probably be asking like, do you agree that it's a barrier? You know, if you don't agree something is a barrier, you know, please feel free to speak up about that. And also, we've had a lot of comments, so we've tried to engage with all of those. We've tried to incorporate all of those, but I think we're also going to be checking to see, have we resolved the comments? And so if you're a person who has made a comment, we may be coming to you to ask, you know, has the editing sufficiently resolved your comment? Okay, and then I think the only other thing I wanted to mention was quotes. We added a couple more quotes, but we're hoping to add even more quotes to the document. And so just to note that the document is still a work in progress. It's still a draft, even though it's like, you know, the fifth or sixth draft of it, I think, at this point. And it's really starting to come together. It's still not totally done, not perfect, not finished. And co-chairs are definitely still hoping to add more to just beef it up and to make sure that we've got all the really good, you know, nuance and like meatiness from our presenters. So, okay, so that said, I think unless anybody has any comments or questions to start with, I think we can pretty much go to the document and just start there. Does that sound good to everyone? Sounds good. All right, I'm seeing some thumbs up, some nods. All right, thank you so much. And to the interpreters, if I am talking too fast, please let me know and I will slow down. All right, well, I think we've been over this a bit before, but we'll go ahead and start with barriers to police accountability. The first part of the document is barriers, and the second part is best practices. So we now have intro paragraphs, so I'll just go ahead and read those for the record, and then we can start to go through this. All right, so the first barrier that we've noted is lack of transparency, has come up again and again. The system lacks transparency for complainants. There is little information available for complainants to understand how the system works and to know where their complaint status is in the process. Further, necessary transparency for community accountability does not exist. The lack of transparency of the process is one area where many law enforcement and community agree is a barrier. I think maybe there might be like maybe like a little bit of a grammatical question there, but we can workshop that. Well, Victoria, I don't know if you want to call on people or if I should call.
Sure, it's up to you, but I can call Commissioner Dan. Yes.
Hello, good evening. Dan Handelman, I use he, him pronouns. I'm a commissioner. I'm also with the group Portland Cop Watch, and I'm kind of a city council junkie. So I saw the new commissioners being sworn in at council, I think it was last week. And so welcome to you both. I am actually just rereading. Sometimes you reread a document and then you start realizing what it says. That last sentence, I thought that main agreement we had from law enforcement types was that the system was too cumbersome and complicated, not necessarily that it was lacked transparency, but maybe that was said and I'm just not remembering it right.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Does another commissioner have a question or comment? Oh, yes, Commissioner Co-Chair Fate.
Thanks for that. And also just wanted to explain for our new members that our lovely staff person, as we are going through this document, is adding comments and taking notes. And also want to kind of heads up for the rest of the commission. Our hope tonight is to kind of content-wise get through the document top to bottom. We may like whiz through that and then we can get into a little bit of wordsmithing, but we want to make sure that we get at least top to bottom content-wise, we're on the same page. And then I also wanted to note there are some pretty like egregious errors in copying and pasting the quotes in. And that is on me. Like you'll see multiple quotation marks and that's not intentional. Like that's not a fancy trick I did. It's just my bad copying and pasting. So wanted to point that out in case you're like, what is this? So yeah, so thank you, Lavisa, for walking us through and hopefully we can at least make it through one time.
Thank you, Co-Chair and Commissioner Fate. Okay, we continue. Commissioner Lovisa, Co-Chair.
Sure. All right, so we'll start at number 1. Community members have difficulty understanding the administrative complaint process and receive little or no support from the current system. So I just wanted to check, sorry, Faith, maybe you could help me out here. Is this where we wanted to check and see, is this accurate? Do people agree that this is a barrier? We want to start at this topmost level.
Yeah, so thematically, you know, we have the lack of transparency and then the bolded numbered ones are sort of the areas where we will agree, like this is the barrier. So I think that is step 1 is kind of checking off that we're in agreement that this is the barrier we want to identify.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, how do folks feel about this bolded statement? Is this accurate? Do you agree this is a barrier? Maybe we can use our hands, maybe we can use our voices. If you feel very strongly about something one way or another, definitely please speak up. I'm seeing some hands. I'm seeing quite a lot of hands. All right, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, we'll head to intake. Intake. Complainants may not know when, where, or how to file a complaint. Prior to filing the complaint, complainants do not know how many times they will have to tell their story. Complainants are not offered access to an advocate during the intake process. Did anyone have any comments on this particular item content-wise? And then we'll, if we have time, we can come back and we can do some wordsmithing. We also have additional meetings and stuff to wordsmith, but content-wise, I don't see any hands or hear any voices. I'll go ahead and go on. All right. Investigation. Portland Police Bureau's presumptive deadline is 180 days from the date the complaint is assigned, but investigations often stretch out for months. Because investigations do not follow transparent timelines, it is impossible for complainants to know how this process will affect their schedules and day-to-day lives. Complainants, including families of victims filing on behalf of their loved ones, are not given regular updates about the status of their investigation. they have to go online to find such updates. Additionally, impacted communities are not given information about the status of an investigation which affected a member of their community directly and the community indirectly. Community members are not offered an advocate during the investigative process. Complainants have difficulty getting real answers from knowledgeable staff about the status of their complaint investigation or what they need to do next. When a complainant calls to get information about their case, they often must start from the beginning each time they call. Complainants encounter the equivalent of poor customer service when interacting with the current system. And then we have some quotes. No one should have to wait months to receive word from the city about what the progress of their complaint is, from City Commissioner Rubio, and from PPA President Schmautz. The public deserves to know what the investigative process is and that it is firmly grounded in truth-seeking. Do we have comments about this? And folks who have offered comments before, do you feel that your comments have been resolved sufficiently by these edits? Do you have content-wise, do you have any content edits that you'd like to offer? And I just want to say thank you so much. We really did get wonderful comments about this section in particular that were really helpful as we were editing. All right, I'm not seeing any comments. Victoria, maybe you can be my second set of eyes and help me.
Yes, of course.
But if I am steamrolling you, please let me know, or please just unmute yourself and speak up. All right, number 2, important parts of the accountability process are not available to the public. Do we agree? Is this accurate? Do you agree it's a barrier? I'm seeing fingers, I'm seeing some nodding hands, and appreciate that. Thank you. It's hard to see when we're in the document mode. All right, I'm seeing a lot of assent on that. Folks, especially who are not on video, please maybe put it in the chat if
And Commissioner Lovisa, Commissioner Sophia wants to make a comment.
Sure.
Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, I actually did not want to make a comment. I just wanted to show my hand that I
Oh,
agreed.
okay.
Thank
My
you.
bad. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Sophia. Appreciate it. All right, investigation. Complainants are not given access to their case file. The case file may contain useful information, such as exculpatory evidence for use in their own criminal case. Any comments on this?
Commissioner Dan?
I'm not sure, but I remember this comment being here before. The useful information, I don't think we should be referring to their criminal case. I think one of the problems and one of the reasons they don't want to share the files with the people is that because of the potential overlap between a criminal case and the complaint. So I think we should say the case file may contain useful information such as evidence that they could use to prove their complaint. And that's really where the problem lies, that they don't have the information they need to support the complaint that they filed in the first place. So is that all right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Dan. Any other comments on complainants not being given access to their case file? Anything else on that?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you so much, staff, for taking these notes. We really appreciate it. All right, I'll move on. Public nature of meetings. The advisory process and deliberations of the Police Review Board are not open to the public. The complainant or survivor is not involved in the Police Review Board process. The Police Review Board executive session is a double closed-door meeting, even to the officer involved. And then here we have a quote from PPA President Schmautz. The PPA president actually this is not entirely a quote from him, but partially quotes. The PPA president, when asked directly, generally objected to public hearings in most misconduct and deadly force cases. These objections were made primarily on the basis of Loudermill rights, constitutional due process rights, and internal procedural justice for the subject officer. Note, during administrative investigations, officers may be compelled to speak by their employer. If there is a reasonable prospect of criminal prosecution, the compulsion to speak renders the statement of the officer inadmissible in a criminal prosecution. Police officers and other public employees retain the Fifth Amendment right, incorporated to local and municipal governments through the 14th Amendment, to be free from self-incrimination in criminal cases. See Garrity versus New Jersey, 385 U.S. 493, 1967. In general, compelled statements are not made public. Do we have some comments and feedback about this, or about, content-wise, how we present this type of information, or how we enumerate the barrier?
Sorry, Commissioner Lovíza. And thank you. I see Commissioner Dunn.
Hi, thanks again. I'm not sure about that. Again, that last statement, compelled statements are not made public. If it's a compelled statement that's part of an internal investigation, particularly if it's part of a deadly force case, it might be made public. And if there are sections of the statement that officer makes that's relevant to the complaint, sometimes those are included in, right now, in the case files that come even before the Citizen Review Committee, which is where the appeals happen, and those meetings are public. So I'm not 100% sure about the accuracy of that statement. And I just want to put a pin in the double closed door item so we can wordsmith that later.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Any other comments on the public nature of meetings or the content accuracy of any of this? Okay. All right, seeing no further comments, let's move on. Reporting of administrative outcomes. Complainants may be informed about the outcome of their complaint, but may not have any information regarding administrative discipline imposed. Data reporting is inconsistent. Results of administrative investigations are not published, or if published, are heavily redacted. CRC reports that they do not receive updates about cases which have come before them on appeal. CRC reports that they only learn the outcome of a case when IPR publishes an annual report. CRC volunteer described the system from an appellant's point of view as maddeningly opaque. That quote is from Yumi Delgado. Do we have any comments on this? Okay, seeing no comments.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lovíza. Commissioner Debbie raised her hand. Commissioner Debbie?
Sorry, I'm a little slow here. So complainants may be informed about the outcome of their complaint. I think I think based on the protocol I read, the link is there. I think everybody gets a letter at the end that says what happened. I maybe not tell you as much as you'd want to know, and it doesn't tell you about the discipline, but at least you know it's concluded and if there were any findings. So there's certain things that they do tell you. So I'm not sure may is the right word in that sentence. I think maybe it should be complainants are informed about the outcome of their complaint, but may not have any information regarding administrative discipline imposed. And possibly that may not even be a may, that may be and don't, but I don't know that for sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie.
Mhm.
And thank you. And now we'll pass it to Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, I agree that there are letters that are sent out at the end of the investigative process that go to the complainant to tell them the outcome. Then if they go to an appeal, I'm not sure that a letter comes back to them with what happened. And for instance, there was a case that went to City Council last year, I think it was, where they voted to sustain a complaint. And I don't know if the CRC or the community ever learned whether that sustained finding was upheld, even though the city code claims that it has to be. I don't want to get into too much detail about it, but I don't even know who to ask about that. I mean, maybe we might have to ask the city attorney in closed session because it might be a personnel issue. I don't know. They don't say the officers' names in public, so I'm hoping they can at least tell us if something happens after the public process, does the complainant get informed about it? So in other words, I'm supporting the language the way it is because I'm not 100% sure they always get informed of the very end result. We've talked about the Loudermill hearings, which is a due process hearing where they get to go and throw themselves on the mercy of the chief or the commissioner that might overturn the findings. So I think might be the accurate word here.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Thank you so much. These comments are really helpful. Thank you. Thanks. I believe we have one staff person doing it all tonight, so thank you very much to that staff person for taking really significant notes. All right. I'll go ahead and move on to reporting. Reporting of criminal outcomes. Criminal investigations of police misconduct rarely result in criminal charges or prosecutions, and the explanations for the failure to prosecute criminally are unsatisfactory. The public cannot easily determine whether an event which triggered an administrative investigation has had any parallel criminal investigation or criminal outcomes. And we welcome content smithing, fact checking. Any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, or comments about this? I also just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for your patience with this process. I know it's it's not the most exciting work we do here at PAC, but it's pretty important. All right, folks who have made comments on that previous section, does anyone have any comments about their comments? Does anyone feel that their comments have not been sufficiently incorporated? I know that we tried to make it a little more clear, the difference between what is administrative and what is criminal.
And I see Commissioner Fate. Go ahead.
Commissioners Dan and Debbie, I think like the demonstration of even in your knowledge of a different understanding around may be informed demonstrates the issue of transparency. So what if we what if we even acknowledge that of like, it is unclear that complainants may be informed?
Maybe it's unclear the extent to which complainants are informed.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Commissioner Faith.
Hey, it's Commissioner Kiana, she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the owner of a co-working space, a Black-owned co-working space called Office Retreat, which I'm opening this fall. And then my comment is just maybe the timing that people are notified may be inconvenient. That may just be a small tidbit that people are getting notified, but maybe not in time or to their satisfaction or in ways that they know about. And then sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So just it may be timing in the process and people not being aware of how and when they're informed seems like a whole other beast in itself.
Thank you, Commissioner Kiana. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And if anyone has, new comments, we welcome new comments as well. It's not just about resolving old comments. Thank you so much. All right. Everybody feel good? All right. Fantastic. I think we've done a great job on that. All right. Complexity within the current system. This was another tough one. Let's see if we can navigate it. The current system is far from easy to navigate. Multiple entities and reviewers can contribute to recommended findings at different phases. Complainants have little information to advocate for themselves and are not offered access to an advocate until the end of the process. Three, not sure if the numbering really matters or makes sense at this point. Obviously, we'll check on that at the end. Some parts of the current system are duplicative, confusing, and contradictory. Do we feel like, is that accurate? Do you agree that it's a barrier? Maybe we can ask folks to show support for that. If you think it's confusing, some parts of the current system are confusing, contradictory. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Recommended findings. Multiple reviewers can recommend findings, and those recommendations sometimes contradict each other. For example, unofficial recommended findings come from IA or IPR, then go to the commanding officer who makes the official recommended findings. Then the branch assistant chief, the internal affairs captain, and the IPR may choose to recommend findings that are different from the commanding officer. This is known as contravening. If the findings are contravened, or if the findings are sustained, or if the case involves deadly force, the police review board then reviews the investigation and again recommends findings. PRB has no obligation to accept a majority opinion, so the PRB may send multiple sets of recommended findings to the chief. The case may then be appealed to CRC, which makes a majority opinion recommendation on findings. CRC opinion can then be appealed to City Council. The chief or commissioner in charge makes the ultimate final decision on findings. Is this accurate? Does anyone have any idea if this is accurate? And if not, how is it inaccurate? We welcome your fact checks on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. And Commissioner Dan?
Okay, first, a minor word correction. Contravening should be controverting. I just double checked it with the city code on the IPR. But the part about the CRC opinion appealed to city council, that's not accurate. I thought I commented on this, but I don't see it here. That, oh, there it is. It is actually in the bottom of my comment over there on the right. If the Bureau disagrees with the CRC's finding, then the appeal automatically goes to city council. So it's not that it's that the complainant is appealing it to the city council, is that the CRC is bringing their case to city council, why they thought it should be such and such a finding, and then they and the police bureau argue in front of the city council. So it's a little confusing because it's, you know, at that point the complainant is kind of a side note in the whole process. But just to be clear, it's not that their opinion can be appealed, it's that it will go to city council if the bureau refuses it.
Okay, sorry. So Dan, is it that if the Bureau disagrees, then the appeal can go to City Council?
Right, exactly. I mean, because if the Bureau agrees, that's it. Then they accept the finding and the case is over. But if they disagree, then it goes to City Council.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. You see why we had so much difficulty writing this section. Any other?
Oh, Commissioner Lovisa, the CSD staff wants to.
Just a quick question. Can someone clarify, just so that we're all clear on what it means, that PRB has no obligation to accept a majority opinion?
I can.
Commissioner Dan?
Yes, thank you. That was another thing I didn't catch, even just time through when it was being read out loud. That's not what it means. It means the PRB has no obligation to form a majority opinion. Is what that should say. And this just came up somewhere else where they can send, like, two of them can think it should be sustained, one of them can think it should be insufficient evidence, and one of them can think that is unfounded, and that goes to the chief that way. So that's what that means. And yeah, just what that one word will fix it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Any other comments or thoughts on this section? Recommended findings. Great. All right. Final decision. Final decisions on discipline are made as many as 3 times under the current system. The chief of police or commissioner in charge makes a final decision regarding findings, which triggers discipline according to the discipline guide. The subject officer is then notified of the proposed discipline and has a chance to meet with the chief or commissioner. The chief of police or commissioner in charge then again comes to a final decision. You know, I'm noticing as I'm reading this that doesn't sound like 3. The city council is not the right place to adjudicate these complex cases. Sorry, this is a quote. We have a quote from Mayor Wheeler here. The city council is not the right place to adjudicate these complex cases. It really is better served through bodies that have the technical knowledge and the time and the energy to focus on these cases because they deserve that focus. The city council does not have the capacity or the technical knowledge to do these cases justice. It's like sending circuit court appeals to the DMV. It's just the wrong place. And that whole thing is a quote from Mayor Wheeler. So I think maybe we can work on or talk about, you know, maybe if we want to incorporate a quote like that, if it's useful to have a quote like that. I'm not quite sure if this is the place for it, but something along the lines of the place that is the final arbiter for some cases is the city council, and that the city council does not feel that they have sufficient capacity or training, honestly, or time really to do these cases justice. any comments about that? Any thoughts about that? Or any thoughts about final decision language?
And Commissioner Dan, please.
Sorry, this is, like I spent way too much of my life at going to these meetings. So, I mean, the meetings of the current system. I agree with you, Co-Chair Lloyd, that I think there are only two decision points there. There's the decision that we should say makes, instead of saying makes a final decision, makes a decision regarding findings, which triggers discipline, and then the subject officer can meet with them, and then they can make another decision. So that's just two times, really, for the final decision. So I think that should be fixed. I'm having mixed feelings about the inclusion of this quote from Mayor Wheeler, because one of the reasons the City Council is involved as it is now is that the old system, before the IPR, which is known as PIAC, the Portland Internal Investigations and Auditing Committee, was City Council. They delegated most of the work to community members known as citizen advisors. And in that case, if the complainant didn't like the outcome, they could go to City Council and appeal it, but the City Council's findings weren't final. So they would, 3 times, they voted to sustain the findings, and the chief overturned them. And that's what led to the creation of the current system where the City Council has final say. So the idea behind this, having the City Council vote on these cases, is to engage them in these very important issues that we're here, that the entire thing that we're here for is to make sure that police officers aren't engaging in misconduct, and to force them to listen to the facts of cases and to deliberate on them and decide whether or not there was misconduct. So even though that's Mayor Wheeler's opinion, and there may be some truth to it, and in the current system right now, it's not envisioned for the City Council to be part of this, but that's something we have to decide for ourselves down the line. And I think that including this quote without any other context leaves it to sound like there is no appropriate role for the City Council, and I don't know if I agree with that. So I'm not sure what we do with that, but that's my response to seeing that quote.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. And Co-Chair Faith, please.
Thanks, Commissioner Dan, and Seema, I saw your comment, and from Ajay as well. I'm curious if it belongs. So to me, the quote is identifying that City Council does not have the capacity or training, or really it is not they have not been given the tools for it to be an appropriate decision-making space. So I think with it being right here, it implies that we're saying City Council should not be the final stop. But I do think that there is some power in the quote around, if we do consider City Council being a part of the decision-making process, what we have heard is their ability to give proper time and resources is woefully inadequate. So I guess I'm kind of recommending that maybe it is a little bit of a pause, or moved, at the very least, taken out from this section and potentially moved, if it's appropriate, into another section to identify the need for more resources if City Council is a part of the decision-making process.
Thank you, Co-Chair Faith.
Thanks so much for the comments. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the perspective, because Dan, that's a
out there isn't the final decision possibly going to be the community
Or pass it to Commissioner Dan.
Thanks, Co-Chair Husseini. Your voice is breaking up a little bit, but I heard your question, whether or not the board itself is going to have the final say. That is indeed how the charter is written. And right now, the city code is written that city council has final say. But I think I just referenced a case where I think, and I still don't know, but I think they voted to find an officer out of policy, and I don't know if that's what ended up happening. There was a previous case where the chief said that she agreed with the Citizen Review Committee, which thus avoided the case going to council, and the chief changed the allegation from being about untruthfulness to being a performance issue. So the officer who should have been fired if it was an untruthfulness case got a very minor discipline instead. So I feel like we see the words, we all see the words that are written down on the piece of paper, but we're not 100% sure that that's how things are necessarily going to work. At the subcommittee meeting, I described how sometimes I feel like the city as an entity is like an evil genie in a fairy tale, where if you wish something, you don't get their language exactly right, they're going to pull the rug out from you and give you something you didn't ask for. And I just want to make sure that the whole commission hears that, because we have to keep that in mind for everything we think is going to happen. We should kind of maybe think of a backstop in case somebody thinks of a workaround for it, so that we are one step ahead of this not working the way that the voters wanted it or the way that we think that it's going to happen. So that's why I'm thinking of the city council as the elected officials potentially could have a role if there's some objection from some party. I won't say who it might be. The two community members having a final say on a police discipline.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say, I think hopefully yes. The answer is hopefully yes. All right, so before moving on, can we go back to the top of 3, because I believe there's a comment thread there. And I just wanted to check back over these comments. We have several rounds of comments, and I wanted to make sure that these comments have been resolved to the satisfaction of the folks making the comments. I think it looks like Dan noted complexity comes from duplicative or confusing steps. I think we've incorporated that language. Faith noted it's not the most important thing is to remove one step, it's that all of the steps are confusing and that there are multiple entry points. Oh, I had noted maybe complexity isn't the barrier, but then I think Monica had mentioned like it seemed really important to keep the word complexity in particular because briefers have identified that as a barrier many times. And then it looks like Dan commented, I don't know how much of the complexity can be avoided given the structure of our city, but that doesn't mean it's not a barrier. So how do folks feel? That I see in the chat, Faith says she feels like her comment was resolved. I also feel that my comment was resolved. Commissioner Dan, Commissioner Monica. I'm seeing Dan says, yep, okay in the chat. And actually, I think that we do not have Monica with us tonight. Yeah, we don't have Monica. That's okay. All right, and then we had a comment from Catherine. It may be useful to note or include in a draft that both PPB and PPA also felt the system was too complex. I'm not sure that we've incorporated this, so I think that we should leave this comment. And Catherine, you're welcome to comment on your comment if you're like, but I think it seems like I think that has not been resolved, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I guess it's self-explanatory. It seems to me the fact that everybody agrees it's complex is an important point to make.
Yeah, maybe we could consider even adding that to the like the introductory paragraph or something along those lines. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, coming back to the document. Number 4, complainants are not offered access to an official advocate until close to the end of the process during the appeals phase. Complainant experience. The complaint process can move among up to 5 entities: Independent Police Review, PPB Internal Affairs, Police Review Board, the Citizen Review Committee, and the Portland City Council. The entity that does the investigation and the entity that does the discipline are different, which creates complexity. Complainants may not know which part of the system to query regarding their complaint at any given time, because most of these entities, I'm guessing this is supposed to say, do not give proactive updates to community members. There are also many steps within the process. The process is so complex, there are multiple flowcharts attempting to explain it. The complainant is not offered an advocate at the beginning of the complaint process to help them navigate the complexities of the system or to keep them abreast of updates. If the complainant can remain engaged with the system for long enough, they can eventually file an appeal with the CRC. CRC offers an appeals process advisor, generally a former CRC member who has access to investigative files and who acts as an appellant advocate. While the matter is on appeal with CRC, the complainant may have an advocate and generally receives better communication and updates about their case. When a case moves from CRC to PPB, the amount of information available decreases. Do we have comments on this section? Do we have content, comments? Do we have fact checks? Oops, sorry. Unfortunately, I can't really see you if you are raising your hand.
I can't. I don't see anyone raising their hands, so you're good.
Okay. Thank you. And I know some of this language is a bit clunky and a bit wordy, and we can definitely do some wordsmithing later on, but right now we are still just at the content organization stage. So thank you so much for bearing with us, and thank you for giving us so many good comments to work with so far. I see staff.
Yeah, just another clarification question. Is this last sentence here designed to say, is PPB accurate, or is that supposed to say PRB? And if it is in fact PPB, is that designed to say back to PPB? The question that I had there, just to make it clearer if possible.
I think it was meant to say or imply back to PPB. That is my understanding of the process. Also welcome other perspectives.
Commissioner Dan?
Yes, I think adding the word back there would be appropriate. The cases generally do not go from the CRC to the Police Review Board. The exception is when the case ends up with recommended discipline from City Council, where then the or recommend a sustained finding, in which case the PRB has to recommend discipline. But otherwise, it generally goes the other way, where the PRB happens before the CRC meeting. So yeah, I think back is a good word.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
All right. Any other comments on this language before we move on, or on this content, I should say, before we move on? Thank you.
I think you're good.
Seeing nothing so far. Thank you so much. Number 5, officer-involved shootings and other deadly force cases are treated differently from other misconduct investigations. Policy. Oh, sorry. I should slow down. Is this accurate? And do you agree that this is a barrier? I'm seeing some fingers, some thumbs. A little wave. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right, seeing some general support for this concept. Policy. A person or surviving family member cannot file a complaint about a police shooting, nor can they file an appeal. Investigations of allegations of deadly force are called reviews and have a different set of findings than other misconduct investigations. Because a person or surviving family cannot appeal a deadly force case, these cases cannot be reviewed by the CRC. IPR cannot conduct investigations of deadly force cases. And I see that we've had some comments on this. So I'll ask the folks who have made the comments. Do you feel your comments have been resolved by these edits? I see. Oh.
And Commissioner Dan.
Thanks. And or do you have additional comments?
Yes.
Well, no, I would like to add the part of the comment I made about CRC has no role except that one member sits on the police review board, and that independent police review staff also has one person that sits on the police review board. So they are involved in deadly force, but very minimally. Like they only each have one vote in a system that is heavily, which we'll get to in another section, I know, is heavily weighted with police members. But I just think we should acknowledge here that they're involved in the system so that people don't think that we're being inaccurate.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other comments or any other content items on this?
Looks like there's no hand up on this side.
Thank you so much. I know we've been going for
Yes.
quite a long time. Did the interpreters need a break?
Thank you, Commissioner Co-Chair Lovisa. Yes, we're thinking after this category number 5, take a 10-minute break. And is 7, yeah, we can come back. We can take a longer break. We can come back at 7:55 because it's a longer meeting.
So sorry, are we taking a break now?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're taking a break now.
Okay.
It's 7:43 and we will come back at 7:55. Thank you. And I will pass it to continue to Co-Chair Commissioner Lovisa. Oh, we need.
Thanks. I think Faith might be hopping in here.
Yes, let's give Co-Chair Lovisa a well-earned break. And Co-Chair CMOB, I'm going to call on you in about 30 minutes for my well-earned break. So let's keep moving.
And we just need second to share the screen of the document?
Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, we have made it through the first two sections and we are on accessibility and equity. So the system's lack of transparency and complexity is an already acknowledged barrier. This barrier is exacerbated for people with
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner Co-Chair. Is the recording going on?
I see the little red recording light.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No problem at all. Okay, this barrier is exacerbated for people with disabilities and those experiencing mental illness. The structural and logistical barriers create inequitable access. Thank you. So number 6, the process, already difficult, is even more inaccessible for people with disabilities and people experiencing mental illness. So this is one of our identified barriers. Can I get a fingers acknowledgement? We're good on this barrier. Ajay, I think that means your hand's raised. It means you're good. If it's not, feel free to come off mute. Okay, cool. All right, great, thank you. Okay, structural challenges. The system exhibits structural challenges and has a history rooted in racism. The system fails to address when law enforcement discriminates against people on gender identity, for example, disrespecting the use of appropriate gender pronouns. People with disabilities and people experiencing mental illness in particular are failed by the system. They are faced with navigating a system that is not created to be user-friendly. Folks have thoughts or comments. And Commissioner Jason, I want to make sure that we captured your edits. So we had changed it from people with intersecting identities and then reverted it to people with mental illness and folks with disabilities.
When it says rooted in racism, but and then it goes on to say law enforcement discriminating against people based on, and then it says gender identity, disability. I think it would be appropriate to repeat discriminates against race, comma, gender, identity, and go on and on.
Great, thanks, Kiana.
Commissioner and Co-Chair Lovisa?
Sure, I wanted to mention or make sure we captured that in particular for people with mental illness being discriminated against by the system, in particular just no part of the system working for them. I think we had mentioned something along the lines of like wanting to add a quote here from one of our briefers. So I just wanted to make note of that so we don't forget to do that. I think that's a very important.
Yeah, thanks, Lovisa. I think that came from Mental Health Alliance, so we can reference those videos.
Commissioner Dan?
This may surprise many people who know me and my work, but to be fair to the police, he said, they just created one, like just in last few months, they created one of the better directives, policies that they've ever had around the LGBTQ plus community, and explicitly setting guidelines for how officers need to address people and their pronouns. So I don't know if this is based on historical knowledge or something that we heard from people from the community that spoke to us, but I don't know if that is currently the system fails to address it. I don't know if that's currently accurate since there's this policy. I'll post the link in the chat for everybody so you can read the policy.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Dan.
Commissioner. Okay. And there's co-chair Commissioner Lovisa.
Well, I thank you for bringing that up, Dan. But I think that this comment had come from Commissioner Charlie and had noted that at least in the past, people definitely have had this issue. And so, even if they're doing better now, those people who have had a bad experience probably have every reason to continue to avoid the police accountability system, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think we could mention that through like historically, like all the policies.
One thing that that just caught my eye was the sentence enforcement are doing bad things, and this kind of supports this narrative that like we just need to take out the bad police and the good ones will do everything right and there'll never be racism ever again, when in fact the good police still end up being racist because the system itself perpetuates a racial bias, and that's like part of the structure of law enforcement. So regardless of like individuals acting good or bad, like it still leads to structural racism. So I don't know if I'm not providing like a good answer for what to replace that with. Not that you have to, but like I just feel like I'm just worried about that narrative of that it's these individuals, when it's like it's not that the system fails to address the bad actors, it's that the system is racist. The system was perpetuated based on race, came out of the institution of slavery, and like I don't know what like a different way to put that though. Like I don't know how to explain that. I don't know if anyone else has like any thoughts on that.
That's great feedback. I think these suggestions, I think, we can reshape this paragraph a little to place the emphasis on the system and structure. So thanks for that. Yeah, co-chairs can work on that. Thank you. Any other comments on this first paragraph, structural challenges? Great. And thank you, Samir, for taking such fastidious notes. Okay, logistical barriers. The system has logistical barriers for many to navigate the system equitably. For example, if you don't own a phone, you can't get a call back. Seeing no comments, I'm going to move forward. Public involvement. The public comment period window is 2 weeks to comment on PPB policy changes. This is not enough time for the public to engage. Members of the public have little opportunity to engage with the current system of accountability in meaningful ways. Additionally, the brief window for submitting comments on PPB policy/directives is also a barrier for advisory committees that meet only every month or two. While the public comment period will likely change to 30 days, this directive could take months before being implemented.
Commissioner Dunn?
I'm not sure that last sentence fits together. I think while the public comment period will likely change to 30 days, and for those who don't know, that proposal was posted by the police while we're in the middle of writing this document. It was just the comment period on that closed just a few days ago. But while it is likely to change to 30 days, that may not eliminate the barriers discussed here. I think that's what it means. So like a commission like ours, we meet, even though we meet twice a week, we might review a policy and then not be able to finalize our comments for more than 30 days. And I think that's still going to be the issue. And rather than how long it's going to take to get implemented, how long it takes for them to collect meaningful public input is, I think, what's got to be focused on.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn.
All right, thank you, y'all. Let's move to the next section. Perception and trust. The system does not work to repair community trust. Community members already experiencing harm by police must then attempt to navigate accountability in a system that prioritizes the protection of law enforcement. This deterrent results in many community members choosing not to interact with accountability processes at all. With the accountability process at all. So in bold, our agreement, there is a current perception by both community members and law enforcement that the accountability system is opaque, unfair, and unjust. I want to check in with y'all. Is this an agreement of a barrier? I see some hands and thumbs up, nodding heads. Okay, cool. Community trust is broken. The public has a sense that the deck is already rigged to favor law enforcement, resulting in the whole system feeling pointless to many. The current system significantly harms the public perception due to minimal publicly available information and a lack of communication to complainants. Thoughts or comments?
Commissioner Catherine?
Yeah, I think that the public perception is mostly negatively impacted by the fact that it does not appear that officers are meaningfully held accountable. I mean, it's just maybe it's that there's not enough information about results that show accountability, but I think there is a perception that that the system does not hold officers accountable. So that's where I think that the thing breaks down, is that people will say always that you know, there's all these complaints and no law enforcement officers are meaningfully disciplined. And so that's, I think it's the substance of the results that are harming the public perception, not communication about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine.
Thank you. Other thoughts or comments on this section?
And co-chair Samir. Go ahead.
CMOB.
CMOB, I'm sorry.
Hey, that's my family name, so it's all good. It's all good. It's a compliment. Yeah, sorry, lower my hand. Just wordsmith, I did appreciate Commissioner Hardesty when she uses an aspiring, not that I hold a lot of hope, but she used the words just, fair, and transparent. So I would, see if maybe we can ask for accountability for a system that would be just, fair, and transparent, and kind of utilize that language. It's been consistent with Commissioner Hardesty's office, as well as I think Mayor Wheeler had used the same phrasing as well. And so
Thank you, Commissioner Sima.
I think phrasing it, you can't just throw that in there without saying that, kind of rephrasing that. There's a current perception by both community members, law enforcement, and law enforcement that the accountability system is opaque, unfair, and is unjust. So maybe transitioning it to like that community members seek a system that is just, fair, and transparent.
Thanks, Imab. Okay, investigative process. If an investigator is former law enforcement, community members may still see them as members of the police department. Further, community members do not differentiate between civilian and sworn members of PPB. It is confusing, frustrating, and intimidating to discuss your complaint about PPB with an employee of PPB. Thoughts, comments? Okay, seeing nonesies. Let's move it. Thank you, Samir. Okay, header current laws and policies. The system is deeply entangled by multiple levels of law and policy. This can be seen in the collective bargaining process between city government and the police union, as well as in the current standards of conduct and discipline. So number 8, the current system is governed and protected by several layers of local, state, and federal law and policy, including and especially labor law. Is this bolded number 8 an agreement of a barrier that the commission agrees on? Thumbs up, spirit fingers. Cool. Great. Thanks, y'all. Okay, collective bargaining. The current system is subject to collective bargaining between the city government and the police union. Most of the collective bargaining process is not open to the public. What currently exists is the result of many years of collective bargaining by the police union. Although new tools for accountability may be introduced, such as body-worn cameras, those tools cannot be used effectively to increase accountability without sufficient buy-in and coordination by multiple decision makers at multiple levels to ensure law and policy align. Thoughts or comments on this section?
And Co-Chair Lovisa.
Yeah, I'm looking at the second part about the tools like body-worn cameras and how it's difficult to use these for police accountability without multiple shareholders, stakeholders aligning. And I'm wondering if it really goes under the collective bargaining portion. Maybe it does, but maybe it goes under like policy. I guess that's my comment. Maybe move that to policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. And Commissioner Dunn?
Thank you, Co-Chair Lloyd. I think that it should stay here, but it should probably be explicitly stated that the police association is basically given more power to decide how body camera is going to be chosen than the community is, right? They're still in mediation, as I understand it, discussing with the city what the rules are going to be. They've been in mediation over this particular issue since February, and it's now September, 7 months. And they get to say what they want to say. I won't get into what might happen down the line, but I think that's the issue, and that's why this is here. So yeah, just maybe explicitly state how they have so much influence over that. And I'm sorry to go backwards, but the item that Commissioner McDowell was talking about with the transparency being an issue, both about the lack of discipline, not lack of communication. I think it's both. I think both things are true. So I'd like to make sure that paragraph includes both when we get to the final version of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Now, Commissioner Sima, Co-Chair Sima.
Yeah, I kind of put it in the notes. I didn't want to take up too much space, but regarding the lines for although new tools for accountability may be introduced, such as body-worn cameras, I don't think many of us over here, or a few of us in this commission, don't necessarily endorse body-worn cameras. I personally see it as a bridge to surveillance technology, which is easily accessible by a flip of a switch if they wanted it. So although body cameras are not synonymous with accountability, rather as a tool intended for it, can we add that the word intended after new tools, so that way it reads, although new tools intended for accountability, ...
Thank you, Co-Chair Sima. And Commissioner Ajay, please.
Yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to expand on Commissioner Dan's point about it's not just the collective bargaining laws, it's the undue influence that the police union has. And to expand on that, like, it's the fact that, they're able to spend millions on lobbying, and like they have political power where they're able to, protect police, and block legislation that holds police accountable. So they're able to actually like create the laws that benefit them in terms of these collective bargaining agreements and other, police related things. So I'm not sure how or if you want to put that in there, but I think that that's a really important point, that it's not just that those laws exist, is that they're actively being created through lobbying and political power by the police unions. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Super helpful. Thank you again, Samir. Okay. Policy. Many investigations are closed by IPR because, even if true, the complaint is not a violation of policy. This is because the current standards of conduct are too lenient. I'm going to read your comment into the record, Dan. That'd be good to add since there's not a law section under laws and policies. Any thoughts, comments here? Okay, y'all, we're doing it. Hanging in there. We're getting so close. Appreciate you. I know this is like so laborious. CMOB, I'm going to make it through effectiveness and then I'm going to hand it to you. All right. Effectiveness. The system is unable to demonstrate that it is working. By design, the lack of transparency bleeds into the inability to monitor the effectiveness, improvement, or challenges. The data that are available are limited and does not summarize the impact made to accountability. So number 9, there are no data to prove or disprove that the current system reduces misconduct. Are we in agreement with this bolded statement as a barrier? There are no data available. Okay, cools. I think Commissioner Sophia, your hand is up because you agree. Cool. Okay, great. Discipline. Current options for discipline are limited and due to definitions and requirements created in closed-door bargaining sessions are often insufficient to reduce misconduct. Letters of reprimand or suspensions without pay are not always enough to alter behavior. Command counseling, when offered as a corrective action, does not alter behavior. Thoughts or comments on this section?
Can somebody help me define what command count? You know what? I didn't raise my hand. Please, Commissioner McDowell first.
I actually just want to go back up to the effectiveness concept and the premise there. I think, and this was certainly a theme that came out of Judge Simon's last review hearing on the settlement and how it's going, was that accountability is both to address misconduct if it's being affected, but it's also to improve public safety, and that without an effective accountability system will never, get the kind of community trust necessary to allow the police to be effective in monitoring public safety. So I just put that out there. I don't, I do think public safety is something our community is pretty focused on right now. And I know that at least the judge really made a connection between effectiveness in terms of accountability and community safety. So I'll just put that out there, that we could add that the current system reduces misconduct and improves community safety.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. And now I will pass it to you, Co-Chair Commissioner Sima. You have a question, correct?
Yeah, just for clarity, the word command counseling is throwing me off. Somebody can help define that.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dan, you want to define that word, or is an additional comment?
A little bit of both. So command counseling is basically just your commanding officer comes over and says, what you did, it was a violation of a policy and I don't want you to do it again. I mean, I'm paraphrasing because I've never been on one of these, discussions, but that's the gist of it.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yes, yeah. And then they wink and they have a little beer. No, just kidding. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be disparaging. So that's actually my point, is that it could work. I mean, there may be officers where it works. So the same way we said not always enough to alter behavior in the previous sentence, I think we should say that here too, because we don't know. There may be officers that it works for.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan.
All right, thanks y'all. Okay, accountability. Thank you, Samir. I'll pause.
No, you can keep going.
Seema, you got a comment before I keep going?
Yeah, just I don't know if it's really worth, but it's just kind of worth putting it out there. you know, where it says there are no data to prove or disprove that the current system reduces misconduct, I would argue that there's no data to disprove that the current system, or there's no data to prove that the current system reduces misconduct, because everything else is proof of the reason why we're here. So I think data proves the current system reduces misconduct, and data being qualitative, such as the DOJ lawsuits and stuff like that. But I think that's some muddy territory, but it's just a thought bubble I kind of wanted to introduce.
And thank you, Commissioner Ajay.
Seema, are you trying to say that that the data that exists, you know, right now, like the DOJ lawsuit, kind of fosters a culture of misconduct? Just to get clarification, that's kind of what I heard, and I agree with that statement, but I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't just superimposing my my thoughts onto you. But just to get some clarity.
I appreciate that. I feel that way. That's not where I was going, but I do feel that way. But what I'm saying is that that there's definitely data that proves the current system does not reduce misconduct. I think there's plenty of qualitative data out there, whether we can use quantifying methods that may be lacking, but I think there's plenty of qualitative data, and which is the reason why we're here as a commission putting together this IPR board, at least the rules that the IPR board will run by. Yeah, the word jiggering that Samir just did is why Samir exists.
Thank you. And now I will pass it to Commissioner Obi.
Thank you. Forgive my just like not knowing an extreme amount of this, but is there data suggestive of the police in Portland or PPB having a current system that fosters misconduct versus similar sized cities or similar comparative cities in the United States? Because I feel like it would be a little bit uncomfortable to specifically state that if it wasn't like specific to Portland, right?
Thank you, Commissioner Obi, and I will pass it to Co-Chair Seema.
Yes, Commissioner Obi, thank you. There are a few examples, one of which an outstanding one was the training slides that was provided through DPSST for training police officers in riot control. And so I think that's one that definitely fostered misconduct. And that's a clear example of a training process that fostered misconduct.
Thank you, Co-Chair Seema.
Before we go back to the Word document, so Co-Chair Seema is recommending removing the word disprove. So there are no data available that proves that the system is reducing police misconduct. So want to check in with folks. Thumbs up, spirit fingers. Are we good with that edit on this agreement?
Can you read it one more time?
Sure. There are no data to prove that the current system reduces misconduct. Cool. Thanks, y'all. Let's do it. Accountability. Discipline only directly addresses the specific subject officer involved. It does not consider the accountability needed to make systems changes, Systemic changes, Samir, you genius.
Yes, and I will pass it to Commissioner Dan.
Sorry, I think that the category in this one should probably be policy rather than accountability. because it's the presumption is that there's discipline that's going to happen for some specific officer, right? But that it doesn't change the policy. So I think maybe it should say policy : disciplinary adjustment. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Commissioner Dan.
Yes, and I will pass it to Commissioner Agi.
Sorry to keep jumping in, but also it seems like discipline doesn't address the culture, which system and culture, I mean, there's obviously a ton of overlap there, but I think the connotation with systemic is like something kind of externally imposed versus culture is internal. And yeah, for that reason, I feel like it would be kind of important to talk about how it doesn't address culture change as well as system change.
Thank you, Commissioner Agi.
Thanks, y'all. And no sorries around jumping in. But yeah, I really appreciate that y'all are engaged. Okay, moving forward. Participation in fact-finding. In the current system, officers generally don't show up for hearings. They have only attended CRC hearings 11 times in over 20 years. The system neither sufficiently incentivizes officers to participate in hearings about misconduct they have allegedly committed or witnessed, nor provides consequences when officers do not participate.
And Commissioner Dan?
Hi, I'm sorry I keep talking, but this is stuff I know kind of like the back of my hand. What's that? Oh, but I think I made this suggestion earlier, but I don't think it made it in, that it should say public hearings. They don't show up for public hearings because we don't know how often they show up to the police review board hearings because those are not public hearings.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And Samir, I know you're the only staff and I'm seeing this message around our interpreter having access.
Yeah, I just sent him a message as well. I don't know how to get
Just
her
a
in.
moment.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, I can't see her on my side.
Apologies. If Luis can cover just for a few minutes here while we figure this out, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, sorry. Accidentally, I don't know what happened, but they kicked me out from the meeting. And later they come back again, but I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Yeah, we're just going to have to continue with Luis covering for a minute if possible while we work on this. Yeah, sorry.
Sure. Samir, if you would share screen, I can actually take notes if you want to work on that piece, and then just copy and paste them into the chat.
Sure.
Okay. Limitations. Want to check in. Are there other comments on participation in fact finding? Okay, seeing none. Limitations of scope. Some complaints have no avenue for resolution outside of private litigation. Importantly, not everyone has the capability to pursue private litigation. Not all complaints rise to the level that would withstand court scrutiny. Comments or thoughts on this portion?
And I see Co-Chair Sima. Go ahead.
Yeah, that last sentence, not all complaints rise to a level that would withstand court scrutiny. I guess if somebody can give more clarification on the inclusion of that, I don't feel like I understand how the court scrutiny aspect works.
Yes, and I see Co-Chair Lovisa.
Well, I think it's saying that okay, so I'm remembering that we had a briefer who mentioned this, that not everyone is able to be satisfied or made whole. Not everybody's complaint can go through the system. Sometimes the only option you might have would be civil litigation, like a lawsuit or suing them, and you know, that has its own burden of proof. And I didn't write this sentence, so I don't know if this is what the person is saying, but I wonder if they're saying that it might not reach the standard for civil litigation.
Thank you. And I will pass it to Commissioner Catherine and then to Commissioner Dan.
Yeah, my recollection was that this was came from the comments of Ashley Alves, who's a lawyer for the coalition. Others would know the name of the coalition, but the
Alabama Minister Alliance
right.
Coalition.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the coalition. And I think what she was specifically talking about there was that, you know, you don't have the ability to bring a complaint for deadly force incidents. Those are go through a different avenue, and that basically that leaves people to have to litigate their concerns through, you know, civil rights lawyers, and not all cases. She can't take all cases, and not all cases would make it through that process, which is rigorous in terms of just, you know, having to establish standing and get around qualified immunity and all the issues that go with that. So I think that is what she's talking about, but I'm not sure that that sentence covers it, because it almost suggests that there would be that those complaints are frivolous, and that's not what she was saying. I think she was saying that the current system does not precludes some claims, and that for some claimants there is no recourse because they can't find a lawyer, or for whatever reason the requirements of litigation would not be satisfied in their case. So that's my interpretation.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Commissioner Dan?
Hi. Well, my understanding of this sentence from personal experience and years of counseling people and watching people go through the system is that it means that if you say, get called a name by a police officer and then you try to file a lawsuit about it, and I don't know that would be called frivolous, it's just that you can't really prove that there was any harm. So a lawyer is not necessarily take the case because an officer called you a name, but it is against policy. But it may not be found in violation of policy, and then your only recourse would be to sue, but you can't sue because it doesn't rise to the level that would withstand court scrutiny. That's what it means. So I don't know if there's a better way to write that, but that's what my understanding of that sentence is.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. And Commissioner Catherine, do you want to comment something else? You're Still have your hand raised. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to just read Co-Chair CMOB's comment. I just don't want a statement here to open us up to legal measure that can be reinterpreted as saying that complaints that don't withstand court scrutiny are frivolous. I think that's fair, and we can work on rewording this portion. Thanks, y'all. This is super helpful discussion. Any other comments on this section? Okay, great. Simon, I'm gonna hand it over to you to take on the next section.
Yes. Okay. So appreciate it. And thank you for all your hard work managing the call. All right. So on to conflicts of interest, bias. Just read it back to you guys over here. The current system of accountability allows opportunity for bias and conflicts of interest. This is demonstrated by the prioritization of ensuring police hold and maintain decision-making power in the investigative and discipline process. Ensuring that police hold and maintain decision-making power in the investigative and discipline process. Thank you, Samir. The system relies on PPB to investigate itself and upholds deference to involved officers. Thoughts, feelings, bereavements. Feeling okay to move on from this? Do we look like we're okay to move on, everybody? All right, good. All right. Number 10, numerous parts of the system are designed to ensure police. So this section, all right. Numerous parts of the system are designed to ensure police, rather than community members, can shape investigations and hold decision-making power. How do we feel of that title? Oops. Spirit fingers. All right. So starting with recommendation of findings, Police Review Board, which is tasked with recommending findings and proposed officer discipline in many cases, has more representation from PPB than from community members. One CRC volunteer may sit on the Police Review Board. However, since the PRB generally meets to hear and review cases during the day, this greatly limits the ability of CRC volunteers with day jobs to participate in the PRB process. We do have a comment on August 25th from Commissioner McDowell, a suggestion. Commissioner McDowell, you want to expand on that suggestion?
Yeah, I think I was probably, I'm trying to remember the context for that suggestion. I think it was just trying to, I think at that time we were trying to discuss when the PRB was involved. And so it seemed to me that it was significant to, instead of saying in many cases, that was like in the cases that are most important, are most serious or controversial. I mean, I think that is the effect. In the cases that where the stakes are highest, the PRB tends to be involved. The other thing is that I think it seems like we might want to put in here the reference that an IPR member is also on the PRB, just to make sure that we're have our facts right, because I think that's how it works. One CRC member and one IPR member. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Now, Commissioner Dunn.
Oh, actually, yeah, Commissioner McDowell led me to make a comment on this, but I had something else I think we should add in this section. All right, so first of all, in many cases, I agree we should change it to in certain cases. I think that would be more accurate because it's not always the most serious cases, but there's specific cases that go to the PRB. One CRC volunteer may sit on the police review board along with one member from a volunteer pool. So there's actually, when there's 7-member PRBs, there are 2 community members on there. In terms of IPR being listed in there, it depends how you define community member. I mean, IPR is not part of the police bureau, but they're also not, they're paid by the city. So, we have to sort of determine what we mean by community member here. I don't mind a reference here, but I just want to make clear that the introductory paragraph here is talking about community members, or the number 10 item. The thing I think we should add here, and I'm surprised that it doesn't show up anywhere else in this document, and I didn't think about it till now, is that another example of this is that the Citizen Review Committee is burdened with the standard of review that requires them to defer to the police commander's decision rather than making their own decision based on the facts they're given. And that is another clear example of what number 10 says. So the standard of review should be mentioned there.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn.
All right, just waiting for Samir to complete the notes there. All right, so with the additions, can we make that suggestion look visible in the paragraph, Samir, with one CRC volunteer? All right, so that would be the proposed addition right there. One CRC volunteer along with one member of a volunteer pool may sit on the police review board. How does everybody feel about these additions? Good. Also just behind that, we have the addition of certain instead of many as well. All right, I'm not seeing anybody really object. Let's see. Read into the record a comment from Dan, maybe say community volunteers rather than just CRC volunteers.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner Debbie raised her hand, but she lowered.
Sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Victoria.
No, it's okay.
Commissioner Iona, do you want to, are you good?
Oh, I just wanted to, I wanted to make that same change because it's not just CRC, it's community volunteers and that bit about the day jobs or daytime meetings.
All right, good.
And I will pass it to Samir.
Yeah, just to clarify, what is the is there a proposed change on the phrase day jobs?
So what I was noticing in that very last sentence, it says, however, since the PRB generally meets to hear and review cases during the day, this greatly limits the ability of, it should be say community volunteers or just volunteers, because it's as Commissioner Dan pointed out, it's CRC and the members, the volunteers who are assigned to the PRB, who there's one of each then. And so you don't need the day job thing, I guess. I mean, I don't know. The fact that they meet during the day makes it challenging for community volunteers to participate. But day jobs, if that was there before, you should leave it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't just saying CRC. And you fixed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And instead of, I have a suggestion. If I'll raise my hand.
You don't have to, it's okay.
Yeah, with the term day jobs, wait, things got moved around. Yeah, thank you. Samir, so fast, dude. Rather, volunteers with day jobs, the word day jobs, I think I'm just gonna wordsmith here, but something along the lines of volunteers who work during daytime business hours or something.
There's a comment in the
Yes.
chat that might be suggestive. Daytime obligations by OB.
That too.
Thank you, you made it.
All right. So how are we feeling? Are we okay to move on down to the next one? Spirit fingers up in the air. Okay. Close out this chat box so I can see it bigger. There we go. All right. 11. People who are making decisions about the system and within the system have a vested interest in the system being upheld. I think saying system with 3 times in the same titles is maybe a bit redundant. If we can go back to seeing that again real quick, is my suggestion. People are making decisions about and within the system, have a vested interest in the system being upheld. That's my offer. All right, move on into investigations. All right. The current system relies on the Portland Police Bureau to investigate itself in most cases for both administrative and criminal allegations. IPR was created in 2002, but didn't do their first investigation until 2013. IPR can't compel testimony and is still relied on police to do so. This demonstrates that the police are still involved in nearly all cases. We have a suggestion for the opening sentence from Commissioner McDowell, and I believe the second sentence from Commissioner Handelman. Okay to have you walk us through that, Commissioner McDowell?
I think it's,
yeah.
I would just say, I think it's been, the language has been changed to address my comment. Thank you.
Good. And Commissioner Handelman?
Same here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Everybody feeling good with the language? Moving forward, dropping down to internal affairs. PPB internal affairs investigations give a tremendous amount of deference to involved officers. PPB officer judgment receives wide latitude from PPB internal affairs investigators. PPB internal affairs investigators are not rigorous enough, especially when officer statements and physical evidence do not match up. And during the 25th meeting, Commissioner Tirsa recommended adding something about training. Recalling Christopher Paella said there's no ongoing anti-racism training after onboarding. Not sure if this fits here under culture or under effectiveness. Commissioner Oriana?
I was rereading my comment, and I think that it makes more sense to be included under effectiveness, just because under the effectiveness section, there's a sentence that mentions that the current system is unable to demonstrate that it is working, and well, if the only anti-racist trainings that police officers are getting are when they are onboarded, and nothing else after that, then there's already an issue with the effectiveness of that training, or lack of ongoing training.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa. And Commissioner Ayen?
They've done some, recent studies about training regarding like DEI topics, and for people who hold certain biases, they actually come out of those trainings more biased, and because they feel defensive and attacked. And I can imagine that would probably be the case for most police officers who don't want to be there in the first place, right? So like the effectiveness of DEI trainings is what I'm trying to say is dependent on the intent of the people that are doing it. And the folks that are doing it because they have to are probably, no matter how much training they get, no matter how much money we throw into it, like they're not going to change because they don't have a vested interest to change. So I don't know if this is the right place to even be talking about what I'm talking about, but I just wanted to like throw that in there.
No, I appreciate it, Ajay. Keep us centered and preach. And also, for Commissioner Oriana's comment, I was actually misplaced. Her comment was for the next item, culture. So I presented your comment too early. Sorry about that. My screen is small right now, SMOL small.
And Co-Chair CMAP, it is, let me see, check is A56. Is there any other comments on 11? Because we have to pass to public comment and next steps. I'm sorry to cut you, but it's A58. No more comments about number 11. Then we will go to public comment. We can go to slide 13. We will now take open public comment on the issues of the PAC is discussing. Our community members can also tell their story about policing and police accountability. We ask members of the public to keep their comments or questions to 2 minutes in length and raise their hand and Zoom if you like to speak. Now is the time that we welcome public comment. Can you raise your hand, members of the public? I don't see anybody. Are you muted? Did you? No, thank you. Okay, then we go to the next slide. And I will pass it to staff, to Samir.
Actually, this is going to go to co-chairs.
Oh, to co-chairs. I'm sorry. Go ahead, co-chairs. For next steps.
Sorry, I'm getting my notes back up
Member
here.
curiosities. Okay. Member curiosities to co-chairs. No.
I think I can do member curiosities.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody so much once again for your patience today. Member curiosities is a brief period of time on today's agenda when members of the commission can bring items to discuss. This might be questions, suggestions, things about previous agenda items or follow-ups, or even maybe an article that you read that you would like to share. We're not going to vote on anything at this time. We just want to give space to members to share, and we'd like to give space to multiple members to share. So please take 1 minute at most during this time.
Thank you, Co-Chair Lovisa. And we're also going to say that we'll get to suggestions in a moment, but we'll start by asking if any members have questions about the PAC and its process that they like to have answered. And I will pass it to Commissioner Debbie.
Oh, I don't have a question. Can I just put my suggestion out there right now? Okay, so one thing I thought about is, as somebody, first I should introduce myself. I'm Debbie Iona. I'm one of the commissioners, she, her. And so, I've been over the years, I've spent a lot of time in the audience as a member of the public at these public boards and commissions. And one thing I think that's helpful is to be as transparent and informative as possible so that members of the public know what's going on. And so sometimes in our internal updates that we get in writing, I think there are like a few things in there that might be of interest to the public that comes and attends our meetings. And I would just like to suggest that we think about whether or not we want to have a couple of announcements at the beginning that reveal some of this inside stuff to the members of the public that come to our meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now to Commissioner Dunn.
Hi, thank you. I agree with Commissioner Iona. I don't know how many people saw the email I sent. When I went to City Council last week, I testified about the appointment of new Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing members and noted that they've run into the same problem as we have sometimes, where they don't have all their seats filled and they can't make quorum. So I raised this issue, and Commissioner Hardesty took up on it and sort of challenged the commissioners, the city council members, to change that rule for the PCCP right there on the spot. They are in the middle of discussing it still, but I just want to remind us, we have a letter out to the city council about the same issue, and I don't know if we have any updates about that for the commission, for our commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Co-Chair Lovisa?
Sure. The only update I think I can give right now is that it has not been picked up by City Council. I think that's the update.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Any other comment or questions for this section? Okay, I think we can pass to the next slide, or yes, thank you. And then is phases of work and transition task. And I will pass it to CSD staff, to Samir.
Thank you. So today, this is a preview of upcoming phases of work transition tasks. This isn't actually doing any of the transition tasks today, just laying it out there as part of setting up the next phase of work, which is powers and duties for a seamless transition. There are a few transition tasks that the commission will be conducting during the ends of upcoming meetings under next steps in the agenda of future meetings. These include, at minimum, member feedback and input on the first draft work plan for the next phase, approval of full commission co-chairs for the next phase of work, and an opportunity to revisit and amend previous documents approved by the commission. This is the tentative plan co-chairs and staff have worked out for the transition. At the next meeting of the full commission, which is next Thursday, September 15th, the first draft work plan will be presented by staff for member feedback and input. This is mirroring what we did in April. For this phase, additionally, there'll be a request for members to provide proposed changes in advance of the next meeting to some of the documents previously approved by the full PAC. And if there are proposed changes, there'll be a discussion and an opportunity to amend the documents. At the following full PAC meeting, the same opportunity to amend the remaining documents will be on the agenda. And additionally, at that meeting, which again is the second full PAC meeting following this one, we are anticipating that the commission will determine its co-chairs for the next phase of work. We'll also have more information on additional future transitional tasks to present at the next couple of meetings. Are there any questions on this information? Okay, thank you very much, and I'll pass it back over to facilitators.
Thank you. Okay, then now is the garden plot recap, and I will pass it to Ayomide or the co-chairs if they want to add something to this area.
First, do co-chairs have anything to add? Okay, the only thing that I got was to put a pin on the double closed door statement for wordsmithing. That was like a major ask. I'm not sure if that was put in the notes in the document, but most everything was put in the document, so I don't have any other items for the garden plot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayomide. Then we go to slide 19, and we want to thank you to all the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions. They were very valuable. Thank you very much. Thank you also to the interpreters supporting access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and its subcommittees for all Portlanders. Thank you to for everybody that come, and also finally thank you to the members of the community for attending and contributing your thoughts and questions. I also will welcome again the two new members, Obi and Ajay. Thank you very much for your contribution. It was very good to have you here, and the commission is very happy to have you here. You can give Everybody can give advanced public comment prior to future meetings, and you can sign for emails. Also, updates to the PAC Works tinyurl.com/Portland PAC updates. It's now 9:08 and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.